Hello and welcome to the hard sell, where the stick in the swill-bucket rattles back. I'm taking tea on the veranda or some goddamn thing today, in defiance of a recent report suggesting that tea drinking is on the wane, particularly among my generation. You know, bastard millennials. Apparently we're all drinking Ponzi green teas and herbal infusions these days. Well, I've always preferred the original stuff myself. But this report, or more accurately press release on behalf of the tea industry disguised as a report, has given me a perfect excuse to return to the subject of the sainted infusion by way of a sort of not brand X. Not brand anything, in fact. Today I'm looking at stuff adverts again. Very specific ones. A whole campaign of them. Courtesy of the Tea Council of Great Britain.
Tea time won't be the same without Patron. At night I lie awake and dream with Donna. I think about that small cafe. That's where we used to meet each day. And then we used to...
There have been bodies like the Tea Council for decades. In the chintz and rationing days, there was the Empire Tea Bureau. Today, we have the Tea and Infusions Association. Back in the 70s, it was still the old TCGB. And along about the middle of the decade, something similar was happening. Tea drinking was on the wane, as coffee and pop were taking its place. The Tea Council had to do something, being as they were a non-profit umbrella organisation representing every aspect of the tea industry, from buyers to brokers to growers to Norman. We don't talk about Norman. Hence the stuff advert. An entire industry banding together to promote itself in the abstract, without brand names getting in the way. The Tea Council don't care if you buy Tetley, PG Tips, Typhoo, Brook Bondi or bloody Happy Shopper, as long as you buy some damn tea. Let the companies fight it out amongst themselves for supremacy. The council's concern is with the pond, not the fish. So, how do you sell the abstract concept of a foodstuff? Well, that depends on the foodstuff, obviously. Duh. I've done 2 episodes on stuff adverts already, weren't you paying attention? Right, that's it, I'm giving you all attention. Alright. From the examples of previous episodes, you could go with an equally abstract, faintly religious tableau approach, such as the Flour Advisory Bureau did for bread. You could go for outright silliness, like Seafish here. You could use light-hearted yet patriotic anthropomorphic animation, as with the early 80s cheese campaign. It all depends on the qualities you want the product to be associated with, or that it already has. Tea, of course, has a massive semiotic weight already, particularly in and about Great Britain. It's our national drink. It's a source of our comfort, even of our strength. It represents British traditions, the British resolve, and stoicism. We face down everything from a broken limb to a terrorist bombing with a cup of tea, and if necessary a biscuit and a sit down, if it's bad enough. Frankly, I don't know how we coped before we invaded and conquered India and put its population to work cultivating this great leaf we just stole from China because for some reason we assumed everything belonged to us, including the land itself. Where was I? So the point I was trying to make there, and there was one, is that tea is woven into the very fabric of British life and the British identity. So the obvious thing to do when promoting it as a Platonic ideal is to remind the audience of that fact. So the campaign had a distinct sense of kitchen sink realism about it from its launch in 1978.
Hey, Johnny. Come on, Johnny.
Tea, best drink of the day.
A slice of life, almost in the purest sense, because it doesn't actually say anything until and except for the slogan. It's just a brief vignette of yon specky bloke and his doggo getting up in the morning and, of course, making a cup of tea, which is depicted in nigh pornographic close-up detail, with enhanced sound effects so you can hear every drop of hot water. There's very little in the way of a direct message, or rather the messaging largely bypasses language itself. There's no mistaking what it's trying to tell you audio-visually, however, even before they come out and say it.
Tea, best drink of the day.
One problem, or potential problem with that one, is that it makes tea seem like a drink for, well, losers. Lonely bachelors with only dogs to talk to. It's the old Strand cigarettes trap. Fortunately, the Tea Council avoided it by launching it alongside a companion advert aimed at people with social lives. The kind of social lives that didn't involve the word walkies. At least in public.
Thought they'd never go. Just look at the state of this place. I could do with a drink.
You must be joking.
Nice cup of tea.
Right.
Beautiful. Oh, tea.
Who's that?
I don't know.
Ha 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 ha, there's a complete stranger in our house. And it's not even a hot Beatrice Dull lookalike like in that Yellow Pages advert. Well, that's the danger with key parties. Just hope he doesn't take a shit on the furniture. Drink tea.
Tea, best drink of the day.
So that's Young Swingers and the Desperately Lonely covered. Now all we need is to hammer home tea's immutable place at the centre of the traditional 3 up, 2 down working family 2.4 mortgages and a dog lifestyle. Particularly for the poor put-upon stay-at-home housewife.
Come on, love, I'll be late.
There are times in the day when the only thing that will really help is a nice cup of tea.
Come to read to me. Ah, tea, great. No biscuits.
Hi, Mum. Tea smashing.
Oh, Jane. What a day. Tea.
Tea, best drink of the day.
You not having one?
I like to imagine that after the advert ends, she decapitates her husband, boils his head, and drinks the resulting stock instead. It was so obvious as to be practically redundant, but I'm going to point it out anyway. The woman is treated as a domestic appliance. By everyone, short of the dog. Her husband, her children, complete bloody strangers who've just arrived at the door. And this is a year before we got our first female Prime Minister. Well, technically female. Might as well be the 30s for all these people care. No wonder they were burning their bloody bras.
Tea, best drink of the day.
You not having one?
After this, the campaign started to drift into more abstract territory, while initially maintaining the basic undercurrent of domestic realism.
No other drink sounds quite like it. Tea, best drink of the day.
This one takes the extreme sensory fetishism of that first one's tea-making montage and expands it into the entire commercial itself. Sound is important to a lot of adverts in this campaign, in fact. I mean, that one hangs a lampshade on it by taking it for its subject matter, but check this one.
One late night drink you won't lose sleep over. Tea, best drink of the day.
Technically the subject here is late night hot, tying in with the slogan and its implication that tea is good at any time because its caffeine content in this form is negligible, only more catchily put. But the sound design is meticulous. They've gone to great lengths to perfectly capture the clink of china. It's practically Pavlovian. In fact, it's not practically, it is Pavlovian. The universal sounds of tea being made and or enjoyed, intended to trigger you into craving the stuff, on some level, conscious, unconscious, or whatever. As long as you buy some tea, they don't really care about the psychology of it. To be fair, whistling kettles were starting to die out around this time, but it was still enough of a thing circa 1980 for the advert's purposes. Or alternatively, this one looks at it from the other end. being about tea's ability to make the more annoying sounds of life shut the fuck up for 5 minutes.
What could be more natural? Tea, best drink of the day.
Again, the sound of pouring is mixed almost as high as that bloody baby.
Tea, best drink of the day.
The Best Drink of the Day campaign was a success, arresting and even slightly reversing the decline in tea drinking and cementing the drink's place in British life, as if it needed it. As such, the slogan stuck around for a while throughout the 80s, even as advertising evolved beyond such straightforward, or even relatively straightforward, ideas. Realism was out. Now was the time for cinematic techniques and representational symbolism. Right when the campaign had essentially fulfilled its initial brief and was therefore free to embrace such wild notions. A musical soundtrack even crept in for the first time, and it is surprisingly jarring after a campaign full of carefully mixed but entirely diegetic sound. The centre of focus shifted away from the British family and tea's place in the centre of it, away from Britishness at all, in fact.
From the exotic lands of kings and princes comes a drink that soothes, refreshes, and revives. A drink that will pick you up or calm you down. A drink that's completely natural. A drink that can be found in just about everybody's home. Tea, best drink of the day.
This one, which I think was originally made for cinemas, is positively revelling in the exoticism of the Orient, to the extent permitted by the budget. Which admittedly isn't far, but the voiceover's doing his best, damn it. And there's the billowing curtains and the exotic red-skied landscape, which was almost certainly shot in Windsor Safari Park, but never mind. Look, this is the sort of feel they were going for.
Speciality teas.
Only without the brand name. Yes, the Howard's Way era has arrived. It's the me decade. It's the golden age of aspiration. Products have to be sold as having some kind of special property that might be passed on to the buyer. And that special property really needs to have something to do with the buyer's status in society. As Twining's demonstrated, it's easier done for a brand name than for the abstract concept of the product.
Tea, best drink of the day.
The slogan made its last appearance, that I'm aware of, in 1988, combating another wave of soft drink dominance. This time the brown stuff chose to fight the fizzies on their own turf, with a slick and elaborate spot, starring the late Tim Pigott-Smith, that for once looked like it had a reasonable amount of money spent on it. Any faint resonances with the famous Apple 1984 advert are pretty inevitable, really. It's far from the only advert at the time to riff on that dystopian vibe, partly because that Apple commercial was so influential, and partly because it was pretty dystopian outside as well.
Impressive, gentlemen. Very impressive. Your company is at the forefront of fizzy drinks technology, but there is a drink which contains no artificial additives or sweeteners. This drink is completely natural in origin.
It's extraordinarily cheap, lower in calories than your standard product, and moreover, has no carbon dioxide whatsoever.
It involves no heavy industrial processing and is available in a form so concentrated that this box contains the equivalent refreshment of over 90 cans.
Okay, Professor, but what is it?
Tea, of course.
Get the message? Fuck your Coke and Pepsi. Tea is better. Tea is the best drink. Only tea. The stats are quite persuasive if you don't think about them. I'm not entirely sure how one measures refreshment, nor do I care to find out. I'm also not entirely sure what that voice is that Tim Pickett-Smith is doing for most of the advert. But blessedly he reverts to his usual ridiculously caramelicious tones at the end. And by caramelicious I don't mean he sounds like he's high on weed. Bloody stoners get everywhere.
Tea, of course.
That, after 10 years, was that for the best drink of the day slogan, at least as far as I can tell, and I'm not aware of any concerted efforts to market tea generically since then. But now, there might be a need to do so again. I mean, obviously, since the world is in the process of ending, it might feel a little futile to worry about how much tea we're all drinking in the process, but it's better than worrying about the inevitable collapse of the ecosystem. Here's hoping they bring back best drink of the day before we all die.
Afternoon tea, please come along if you like, 'cause I like you, girl. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba.
You've been watching a Bob the Fish production. Thanks! If you haven't found it already, be sure to check out our website at bobthefish.org.uk. Literally hundreds of videos not unlike this one that will make you laugh, think and realise new things or your money back. Which works out great because they're all absolutely free. All of this is possible thanks to the not unique way that Bob the Fish productions are paid for by you, the viewing public, via Patreon. For a donation of as little as £1 a month, not only do you ensure that I still have food and shelter so I can carry on making these programmes, but you could become eligible for a whole host of cool extras. New video essays, special event live streams, all my content a week in advance, and my book on the history of the BBC, Rule the Waves, chapter by chapter as it's written. And some cake, if you go out and buy a cake and eat it while you're watching. And if you don't want to support on a monthly basis, you can make a one-off donation via coffee. It all helps stave off scurvy. bobthefish.org.uk. You make it what it is.